The dust motes danced in the single beam of my flashlight, thick and ancient, disturbed by my frantic breathing. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of mildew and something else, something metallic, like old blood, and subtly, sickeningly sweet. Every creak of the motel above me, every shift of the old building, translated into a sharp, agonizing stab of fear in my chest. I pressed myself against the crumbling plaster, my heart hammering against my ribs, trying to make myself invisible, knowing it was useless. The scraping sound from the far end of the narrow space had stopped, but the presence was still there, palpable, pressing in on me like the weight of the earth itself. Something was coming, and I had nowhere to go. I was trapped. It all started last summer when I needed a job badly. I saw the ad online. Night shift front desk clerk, Roadside Motel, competitive wage, immediate start. It was for the Sleepy Hollow Inn, a place I'd driven past 100 times but never really noticed, nestled off a deserted stretch of old Route 33. The interview was with the owner, Mr. Henderson, a wiry, nervous man with a perpetual sheen of sweat on his forehead. He gave me a quick tour of the old two-story building. The paint was peeling, the neon sign flickered erratically, and the air inside carried that specific, musty odor of forgotten places. The initial weeks were exactly as advertised, quiet, bordering on mind-numbing. My primary companions were the hum of the fluorescent lights and the occasional distant rumble of a truck on the highway. I'd get perhaps 2 or 3 guests a night, if that. One night in my 3rd week, I was doing my usual walkthrough of the hallways. As I walked past room 204 on the 2nd floor, I noticed the wall seemed off. The wallpaper pattern was identical to the rest of the hallway, but there was a subtle difference in the texture. I ran my hand over it, feeling a faint seam that was not part of the pattern. It felt cold to the touch, colder than the surrounding plaster. I tried to dismiss it, but the image of that wall kept replaying in my mind. Call it an occupational hazard of the night shift when your mind starts to wander. I pulled out the old architectural plans Mr. Henderson kept in a dusty binder under the counter. They were hand-drawn, yellowed with age. I traced the rooms, the stairwell, and that section of the wall. According to the plans, there should have been nothing there but a solid wall. I frowned, tracing the lines again. The architectural drawing clearly showed a space that simply wasn't accounted for. My curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed my flashlight and went back upstairs. This time, I tapped the wall lightly with my knuckles. The sound was different, not the solid thud of plaster, but a muffled, hollow echo. My heart began to beat a little faster. This wasn't just a quirk, this was deliberate. Eventually, my fingers brushed against a faint indentation near the floor. It was a narrow, vertical line, a seam. This wasn't just a wall, it was a door, a hidden door. A wave of unease washed over me. Why would anyone hide a room in a motel? I returned the next night with a small tool kit from the maintenance closet. As I tried to wedge a flathead screwdriver into the subtle seam, I distinctly heard something. It was faint, barely perceptible, like a soft scrape. The sound seemed to come from inside the wall. It was a rhythmic, almost deliberate scraping sound, like fingernails dragging lightly across wood or plaster. My blood ran cold. I tried to rationalize it as rats, but the sound was too precise. Was it just my imagination, amplified by the tension and the quiet of the night shift? A few nights later, the sound started again. This time, they were clearer. I was at the front desk when I heard it, a soft, persistent thumping coming from upstairs. It was slow, deliberate, like someone gently knocking on a heavy door. "Hello," I called out, my voice sounding weak in the empty lobby. The thumping stopped immediately. A heavy silence descended. All the rooms on the 2nd floor were empty that night. I checked the registry myself. Then came the smell. It was a faint, sickly sweet odor that would waft through the 2nd floor hallway, always stronger near the hidden wall. It reminded me of old flowers left too long in water, mixed with something vaguely medicinal, like formaldehyde. The incidents kept escalating. One night, I found a small, peculiar drawing tacked to the bulletin board in the staff break room. It was rudimentary, depicting a stick figure holding hands with another stick figure, but one of them was disproportionately tall, with unusually long, spindly limbs. Maggie, the day shift clerk, had never seen it before, and no kids had stayed at the motel recently. I started to become sleep-deprived, jumpy, and increasingly paranoid. The sounds from the hidden room became more insistent. The scraping, the thumping, and one night, a low, mournful hum vibrated through the building during a storm. Then it became a distinct scratching, a deliberate, rhythmic scratch, 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 like something desperately trying to get out. It felt like a direct challenge. My heart hammered. I had to know what was in there. I went to the maintenance closet, not for the screwdriver this time, but for the heaviest hammer I could find. The hammer felt cold and heavy in my hand. As I reached the second floor, the scratching from behind the wall intensified, a frantic, desperate scrabbling. The sickly sweet smell was stronger now. I raised the hammer, aiming for the spot where I'd felt the hollow sound. The first strike echoed through the silent motel with a shockingly loud crack. Plastered dust exploded outwards, revealing not brick, but old, dry wood. I struck again and again, adrenaline overriding the fear. Finally, a section of the wooden paneling gave way, revealing a dark, claustrophobic opening. The air that rushed out was cold, stagnant, and carried an overwhelming stench of decay. I shone my flashlight into the darkness. The space was incredibly narrow. It wasn't a closet, it was a cell. The walls were scarred with deep, frantic claw marks that ran from floor to ceiling. On the far wall, scratched into the wood in what looked like dried, dark brown stains, were the words, "Help me, let me out, I'm in the walls." Then I saw it. In the deepest corner, almost completely obscured by shadows, was a figure. It was hunched over, impossibly thin, almost skeletal, draped in tattered clothing. Its limbs seemed too long, too spindly, just like in the drawing. The figure slowly, deliberately began to turn. Its head swiveled, unnaturally slowly, until it faced me. The face was gaunt, covered in a pallid, almost translucent skin stretched taut over sharp angles. Its eyes were sunken, black, gleaming with an ancient, terrifying hunger. Its mouth was a jagged, toothless maw. It raised a long skeletal hand and took a slow, shuffling step towards the gaping hole I'd made. Panic seized me, sharp and overwhelming. I dropped the hammer and just ran. Down the stairs, two at a time, I burst into the lobby. I fumbled for my car keys, my hands shaking so violently I could barely hold them. I sped out of the Sleepy Hollow Inn's parking lot and didn't look back. I never went back. I called Mr. Henderson the next morning and quit, giving no reason. What would I tell the police? That there was a monster in a secret room? They'd think I was insane. Sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I still hear the whispers, the faint scraping. I still smell that sickeningly sweet odor. I see the creature's eyes in my nightmares, and I find myself checking the locks on my windows and doors twice, 3 times. The uncertainty is a constant companion. A silent terror that reminds me that some things are best left undisturbed. I've tried to move on, to forget, but how do you unsee something like that? How do you unknow a truth so profoundly horrifying? I still get shivers, knowing that some walls don't just hold up a roof, they hold unspeakable horrors.